Hello and welcome to Sports Talk in the Burgh, where we talk all things Pittsburgh sports. My name is Alexis Davis and I'll be your host. Now to meet our panelists. First, we have the biggest Pirates fan I know, Austin Bechtold. Next, we have Baldwin's favorite son, Nate Bryce-Singer. And our last panelist is Jonathan Hanna, who is somehow still a Buffalo Sabres fan. Now on to our first topic. Ryan Shazier announced his retirement after suffering a serious spinal injury in 2017. Austin, was this the right call, or do you want to see him play again?
Thank you, Alexis. Well, I'm not that surprised about Ryan Shazier retiring. It kind of was inevitable when he got hurt in 2017. The spinal injury that he suffered was so brutal against Cincinnati on Monday Night Football. There really was just a hard road to get back. People didn't even know if he was going to walk again.
Yeah, and I think it's also, you have to, not only the football side, he was just married a couple years ago. He has 2 sons now. I think that it's the right time, just the whole storm to, step away, because he has still a full life. He's only 28, still a full life ahead of him.
I mean, it's just terrible what happened. And he was on the road to recovery, but, just these things happen. But he became one of Pittsburgh's more famous icons, going to Pittsburgh sporting events. But now he can just hang out and do what he wants to do now.
So Shazier finishes his career with the Steelers in only 46 games. He had 7 interceptions and 7 forced fumbles in only 4 seasons. And like I said, he injured his spine on December 4th of 2017 on Monday Night Football. It's been now more than 1,000 days since he played his last game in the black and gold.
Yeah, and those stats you mentioned, he's one of the sharpest football minds they've had in, well, I don't want to say in recent years, but he's still one of the sharpest football minds. So I wouldn't be surprised if he stuck around the game, whether it be a scout or a coach in that regards.
Definitely could happen. And he's just the best speed linebacker that I think we've seen in Pittsburgh. And the drafting of Devin Bush and going into his second year this year is going to try to replace Shazier if that was ever possible.
Yeah, it's really hard to replace him, but it was such a hit when he went down.
All right, we got to go head on to our next topic, more football. With the NFL beginning this season, what do you think of the Steelers coming in with their off-season draft picks and moves? Nate, if you'd like to go ahead and start us off.
Thanks, Alexis. The Steelers were pretty busy this year, losing key players like Javon Hargrave on D-line, but then they also bring in Chris Wormley and with a big contract extension just recently to Cameron Hayward. And what a big extension for the Steelers. He is the leader on that defensive line, and he's very physical and up front, helping to stop the run.
It's very interesting, the fact about the Cameron Hayward deal. He said only a couple days ago, I'd like to say, that he was ready to say his goodbyes to everyone in Pittsburgh. He didn't think a deal was going to get done. He basically lost all faith, not really in the organization, but contract talks between his agent and Art Rooney and Kevin Colbert just weren't there.
I do have one problem with the contract, and that's the length. You have guys like T.J. Watt, Juju, James Conner, even maybe Big Ben, all due for contracts within these next 2 years.
All right,
you never know. If Ben comes back, he's going to want money.
All right, well, here's the thing, John. Are you going to pay Juju? I don't, okay? To me,
there's a reason you're not Kevin Colbert. There's a reason you're not the GM of the Steelers.
Why is that? Why would you keep Juju on this team?
Because he is a bona fide number 1 receiver.
Was he last year?
Juju has turned into the number 2.
Who was the quarterback last year?
Doc
you had
Hodges.
Mason Russo. Of course he's not going to be the number 1 receiver when you have those guys throwing to him.
Well, what about rookie Deontay Johnson? He was the number 1 wide receiver over Juju. He played phenomenal. And not to mention, I want to go to James Conner, okay? I know you probably don't watch Steelers football consistently being a Buffalo Bills fan, but James Conner, we've seen him a lot at Pitt. He can't stay on the football field.
He's too injury prone.
He's so injury prone. He's a great, lovable guy. He's a fan favorite in the city. There's no doubt about that. But what it comes down to is you need a bell cow running back. I know Mike Tomlin said in his press conference, we got him. James Conner is our bell cow running back. He just doesn't have what it takes to stay healthy right now, going into his 4th and final year under contract. And I don't see him and potentially even Juju being able to stay with the team long term.
All right, and Big Ben will be making his return after an elbow injury last season, and Week 2 left him out for the remainder of the season. Jonathan, do you believe the hype that he will make the Steelers a legitimate contender, or do you think that they'll have another struggling year?
I think that they're definitely going to be better than last year. Last year they went 8-8, as mentioned, with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph at the helm. I think that if he is healthy, he will boost that team. I think double-digit wins is the minimum right now. That defense is probably top 5 in the NFL, if not top 3. with Minka Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, obviously. So I think that that defense will be the star, but I still think that, with a healthy Ben, relatively healthy, elbow injuries are still difficult to come back from. But I think that he'll be able to boost that win to 10 teams, maybe a wild card berth, because I still think the division is the Ravens to lose.
Ben brings so much significance to the team. 2018, the Steelers were 6th in the league in scoring points on offense, and then they fell to 27th last year with Duck and Mason Rudolph at the helm. So, bringing Ben in with the arm he has and some of the newer weapons like Chase Claypool, he can be very dangerous, and this offense can be dangerous just like the defense.
Put me on the hype train. I'm all aboard. Now, here's the thing. The defense is phenomenal. I think, as you guys have mentioned, you get TJ Watt back. You got Bud Dupree back on the franchise tenure. Now, you do lose Javon Hargrave. He was great in the interior, and I think he was a lot better than really fans gave him credit for.
Yeah.
Seeing his Pro Football Focus numbers, really just how he stood out. But you got Cam Hayward. That's why he signed Cam Hayward. That's why you got Stephon Tuitt coming back. And probably the most underrated group on this team, I think there's two, but I'll touch on the corners and the whole secondary to begin with. Joe Hayden, no one talked about Steven Nelson.
No.
No one talked about. If you look at his numbers, he was rated one of the highly rated corners in the whole game last year. You return Minka, it's obvious. Terrell Edmonds got to get back, and he's got to do something productive. He's really looking like the weak link. But the wide receiver group with Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool and James Walsh, everybody, they're along with Eric Ebron helping out Vance McDonald to hopefully not get hurt. Steelers are going to be dangerous.
I think Eric Ebron.
Sorry. Moving on to baseball. The Pirates currently have a 13-26 record, and obviously rebuild can't happen overnight. But Austin, what do you make of their performance this season? Do you have any players that give you hope for the future?
Okay. Hear me out. The Pirates need to do whatever they can this year to just lose. Now, why am I saying that? Why am I saying that? Why do I think they need to just lose? Well, you have the number 1 pick in the draft this year going to be a Vanderbilt product that threw a no-hitter as a freshman. His name is Kumar Rocker. And if Pirate fans are really looking forward to the future, that name should be in the back of their mind. He would be the guy that they would get right now with the number 1 pick. Now, the Pirates were in prime position for that number 1 pick for a long time. Now sliding to 5th. They've had a couple off days, a couple games they got to make up. Boston right now would be the team to pick number 1 and probably select Kumar Rocker. Another option is Jack Leiter, another Vanderbilt pitcher. But in all honesty, this team's not going anywhere this year.
No, I think they have some key prospects that are coming up. Cabrian Hayes played a couple of games already. 23-year-old third baseman. Already has 2 triples in a week of MLB play. I think he's going to be one they need to build around. But obviously, as mentioned with Kumar Rocker, that's helpful to get on the pitching side.
Well, he really came out with a bang, hitting a home run after a rain delay that shortened his debut with the Pirates. And that home run, Nate, we were watching it. What did you think? Is Cabrian Hayes going to be the star of this team moving forward?
He very well could be. It's just a matter of if he can get the bat going. He's very good on defense, but if he can put some pop into his bat, he can be a very dangerous third baseman for years to come in the MLB.
Yeah, a couple of things that I look at. If you would have to crown an all-star on this team, Jacob Stallings is no doubt that. He was hitting 300 for a little bit most of the year. I think he's a little under around 290 right now. His pitch framing is phenomenal. He's rated the best defensive catcher in all of the Major League Baseball. And he's one potential building block. He is 30, but you could build upon him. You do have O'Neal Cruz in the pipeline. Mitch Keller hopefully comes back from injury. Don't rule out Jameson Taillon next year also coming back. You got a lot of weapons. You got a lot of pieces.
And then last year's 7th overall pick, Nick Gonzalez as well, just finished up at New Mexico State. He could be a key contributor to this team.
Sorry, guys, we got to move on to some hockey. The Penguins were knocked out of the first round of the playoffs by the Montreal Canadiens. And this was obviously a huge disappointment. Now, do you think that fans expected too much of the team? And also, which goalie should go and which one should stay? Nate, if you want to start us off.
You know what? I can't be too upset about the Penguins' loss. I know it was to one of the worst teams in the entire NHL in the postseason, the Montreal Canadiens. But you were given 2 weeks to practice, and then you get into the bubble, and you're there for only a couple days, have one scrimmage in a game. I think the Penguins just weren't ready. I just think there was too much expected.
Carey Price was just a hot
Carey
goalie.
Price is just one of the best goalies in the league. So, he was tough to beat. And the Penguins
He's
just
actually lived up to that $10 million salary cap that, he finally is, earning that he hasn't earned for the past, 3 years?
And I think the Penguins, they look to be built on speed, and I think they just lack that in the playoff series. Just some of the older guys like Hornquist and Jack Johnson, even Justin Schultz, they just didn't have the speed that they used to have.
Yeah, and speaking of those defensemen, Jack Johnson, Justin Schultz, I think that in order for next year to potentially, go back to the finals, they need to get rid of those guys. Jim Rutherford did say that he thinks that Schultz is gone. He said, quote, "We'll move on from Justin. He's going to do better in the marketplace than what we can do here based on our cap situation. They have $8 million going into technically this offseason, and they still have to assign Tristan Jarry, Matt Murray, maybe Justin Schultz. You have guys like Brian McCann, Dominic Simone, and Connor Sherry all coming off the books or potentially re-signed with only $8 million in space."
Brian McCann was a catcher, but that's okay. I'm going to take...
Jared McCann, sorry.
All good, John. All good.
McCann.
Well, in terms of Murray and Jarry, pretty quickly right here, I just go with Murray. He's won 2 Stanley Cups. He's done what he has to do. I mean, it wasn't that great in the playoffs, but
He wasn't great in the regular season or the playoffs.
he's got talent still.
Yeah,
I
the
ride with him.
He had
All
less
right,
than
boys,
900
we have to wrap it
save
up.
percentage.
We have to wrap it up. Coming up next on Sports Talk in the Burgh, we'll be discussing the NBA and the recent changes in RMU sports.
All right.
I need
What can we do about these lights? Because no one can. I am look terrible.
You have to tread. Oh, Dad, that's not the kind of help I needed. Hey, Jessica. Will you go to prom with me?
Yes.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care can't wait to share their first with you.
Let me tell you about the toughest guy on earth.
Yeah, just throw
He
him.
has the crazy strength to lift the man that raised him up without even flinching. This guy, no, this warrior, will always be by his father's side, even if his dad will hardly remember. If this guy isn't the toughest guy on the planet, then I don't know who is. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies.
Selfie nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Hey Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome back to Sports Talk in the Burgh. Our next topic will be the NHL and NBA bubbles. Would you like to see anything new when they start their seasons later this year, or do you feel like games almost feel too much like scrimmages? Nate, you can go ahead and start us off on that.
There's not too much you can really change. I think both leagues have really done a great job of adapting to the new circumstances. But there really is just like a scrimmage type feel, and sort of like you're playing a video game when you're watching the games.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, there are those the virtual fans, but they really don't add much. They're just, for the NBA especially, they're just some pictures in the background. You don't really hear. I know they're trying to pump in crowd noise, but it's really not doing anything. Like you said, I think like England took theirs straight from FIFA. So it's like you're playing a video game. There are a couple things I do like. The NBA had a really nice sideline cam that they put for the Orlando-Philly game a couple months ago now, early in June. And then one thing I would like to see is, they haven't done it yet, but completely scratch the broadcasters. Give us mic'd up players. You might have to put some bleeps in there, obviously, but get rid of the broadcasters. I'd love to hear just the straight-in arena audio.
I do like the added microphones, but not scratching the whole broadcast.
What's wrong with that? You have a problem with Pierre Maguire telling you where Sidney Crosby went to high school every single Penguins game?
Okay, John Hanna. Well, this is our job, and if you want that eliminated, there you are. Well, there are some things that are going to stay. One thing that I look at, John, you mentioned, camera angles. There's a lot of camera angles that they've been testing out in the bubble. I hate to burst your bubble. That's going to stay. Another thing that's going to stay probably is the promotions on the court. And I like it, but putting those advertisements on the court right now and the smaller logo on the court for the home, representing the home team, I don't think those are going to stay. I think those will go back to, when the Lakers go play back at Staples, that'll be there, and, all the other NBA teams. But I really do think that logos, meaning advertisements, like they are on jerseys,
I mean,
are gonna be
anywhere they can get more money.
Yeah, the NBA
That's
needs
why.
to make some money. Same with the NHL. So
that's why.
Okay, next topic. The NBA finals will be starting soon. And Jonathan, what are your predictions on how the rest of the season and the finals will go?
Well, I think that it came to a surprise of all of us to start off with that Giannis was eliminated, obviously reigning two-time MVP. But that goes straight into my prediction for the NBA final. I think the Miami Heat are going to make it to the finals, lose to the Clippers in 6. I think that Eric Spoelstra is one of the most underrated coaches in the NBA. He created a game plan to, handicap Giannis, which really brought them into where they are now.
I mean, it's hard not to take the Heat, but in the East, I got to go with the Celtics. I mean, they're one of the better all-around teams over in the Eastern Conference. Jason Tatum has just emerged as one of the better players in the league. But I'm going to go with a surprise pick in the West, the Denver Nuggets. I know they're taking out the 2 LA teams, but I have the Nuggets. Jamal Murray has really, become
Nuggets
one of the
aren't
best.
going anywhere unless they play Bol every single minute.
Bol was phenomenal in the games they did play. You ready for this one? LA Lakers, baby. You got to ride LeBron. He's the best player in the league. But
who's LA playing?
Hold on. The Lakers are playing Houston right now. I'll get to the finals.
Okay,
I'll get to the finals. They're playing Houston right now, and I think Houston's too one-dimensional. Their small ball might work in the future. I don't like where they're at now, so I think the Lakers win. And in terms of Miami and Boston, I think Boston's going to end up coming out in 7. I like you said, I like Tatum. I like Jaylen Brown. I like just the core players that they have there, Kemba. But I think the Lakers beat the Clippers. I think it's just LeBron's year. LeBron has to win this year because that roster is old. They don't really have draft picks. They can't really bring anybody in. The cap space is a little
similar to the
tight.
Penguins.
It's basically what's happened to a lot of LeBron teams where you try to have to maneuver. I think this is probably LeBron's last ride, maybe. I think if you watch that game against Houston last night, he was just absolutely insane, making incredible blocks all over the court.
LeBron does look unstoppable, but I'm going with the upset still. Nuggets, Jamal Murray versus the Lakers and LeBron. I'm taking the Nuggets, surprising everyone this year.
I think Jimmy Butler and Goran Dragic could lead the Heat over the Celtics. I know you were talking about Jaylen Brown, but...
All right, thank you. Now to RMU sports. RMU has moved most of their sports to the Horizon League. Now, Austin, what do you think of the move, and what do you think teams will do? Do you think they will succeed, or what teams do you think will struggle?
Oh, I think it's a good move. I think at first it's definitely going to be a hard adjustment. Now, when you move into a new conference, especially one that's considered to be a higher level of play and strength of schedule than what you face in the NEC, it's just going to be tough right off the bat. Now, you could look at what Merrimack did in men's basketball and came
Merrimack
out of the gate
they just completely not destroyed, but they didn't destroy the rest of the NEC.
Right, if they were eligible to win the whole NEC,
they likely would have.
And men's basketball.
And I think men's basketball does have a chance to do that, but I think it's going to be a hard transition. I do look at volleyball, though. 25-5 last year. They did struggle against Central Connecticut in the semis of the NEC Championship. But I think if you're looking for one team, I'd bank on volleyball being the first to succeed very soon.
If there's one team that I think is going to succeed first, it's the women's basketball team. They've just been dominant year after year after year, and I think they're going to fit in just like a glove into the Horizon League.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that women's basketball they were able to battle hard against TCU, a Big 12 team. I think that they are able to, move into the Horizon League and just not dominate, but, play up. I think they're going to be in the upper half of the league first season.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting with basketball because one thing that you also look at that I really didn't know until I did some more Horizon League research, home game, or you don't get a home game let me put it this way. RMU hosted the NEC Championship game last year.
Yes.
In the Horizon League, you don't get that privilege if you're the top seed. You got to play in Indianapolis to be able to win the whole league and go to the NCAA tournament. So that could be an obstacle that RMU will face, maybe not having those road fans to be able to travel. And that's one thing that I look at to say it's going to be a little bit harder of a challenge. It's definitely going to be hard in that type of adjustment, in that standpoint.
I think there's a lot of adjustments that each team's going to face once they come into these new conferences, but I think some of the teams will just fare fine.
RMU football has also moved divisions, and they will now be in the Big South. Jonathan, how do you think RMU football will do in the Big South? Do you think it will be a good season, or will it be a bit of a struggle?
Well, first season going into a new conference, unless you're Merrimack, is always a bit tougher. Different travel locations. You don't always stay at the same hotel that you're used to staying in. Tougher competition, and even a different style of play. Because it's in the NEC, it's colder weather, so you're going to be running the ball more, likely more rain and stuff. In the Big South, like a lot of those southern conferences, it's more air raid. And also a thing to know about, the NEC, 40 scholarships. The Big South has 63. So that's 23 more scholarship athletes, better athletes than potentially than the NEC offers that you'll have to play against.
I mean, last year, for the first time in a long time, RMU football was actually good. 6-1 inside their conference. Jumping to a new conference in the Big South is going to be really tough. And after losing a handful of seniors, they're going to have to find ways to win, claw and scratch and win. But I think the Big South is going to pose a real big threat to the football team.
Yeah, John, I think one thing you mentioned in terms of the weather in the Big South, it's just going to be different.
It's warm.
It's warm.
When's it warm in Pittsburgh?
It's usually not warm up here when you're ever playing October, November football. And could that make a little change of style of play for RMU? Could it be, a little bit more passing in terms of running and ground and pound with the cold weather? It is a possibility, but I definitely think that Coach Clark, in his third season.
Well, speaking of Coach Clark, actually, he was the defensive coordinator of Hampton in the Big South in 2009 and from 2012 to 13. So it's a little longer, 7 odd years, but who knows if he still remembers some of the coaches in the Big South and remembers how they played.
That's a good nugget there, John. Definitely going to be familiar with the conference. And I definitely think that RMU has a chance, just maybe give it a couple years. Usually the third year is the leap year in terms of the coach.
Yeah, and you'll get those 23 extra scholarships coming in now and making that impact.
Also,
when we return, the panelists will give their final takes on today's topics.
Hey, Dad. I need your help asking Jessica to prom.
Of course. Love is like the ocean. You have to tread the
Oh,
waters.
Dad. That's not the kind of help I needed.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Jessica.
Do you want me to intro? Do we want to move
um,
cameras? I'll intro it. We'll run it, and then we'll run.
Will you go to prom with me?
So we fill that.
Yes.
I'll just say before we.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care can't wait to share their first with you.
Let me tell you about the toughest guy on earth. He has the crazy strength to lift the man that raised him up without even flinching. This guy, this warrior, will always be by his father's side, even if his dad will hardly remember. If this guy isn't the toughest guy on the planet, then I don't know who is. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices.
Like your text-to-emoji ratio.
Oh man, the selfies. Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Hey, Mike. Did trees tell
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, Why don't we go find out? listen.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome back to Sports Talk of the Bird. Many college sports have decided to delay or even postpone their seasons due to COVID-19. I ask you guys, what do you make of this decision, and what do you think could be coming in the future?
Well, I like the fact that they're taking the precautionary measures. We saw already since school started, Alabama, the University of Alabama, over 2,000 cases. Ohio State over 1,500, and these would likely, be larger across all different colleges if Ohio State went to Michigan, Alabama went to LSU, if we kept seeing these intermingling of colleges more than just because these are just local parties that mostly are getting all these cases. So if all these schools were intermingling with tailgates, I think that it would be just a giant second wave.
I agree. I also do want to give credit, though, to schools like the ACC and the SEC and the Big 12. They're going to give it a ride, and they're going to try to let it play out and see if the football season can happen.
As of now, the NCAA only cares about the Power 5 schools. So I think what they could do is put them all in their own bubbles if they really wanted to, keep them isolated from fans and other people on campus, and let them play and travel and go head-to-head with each other.
It's definitely going to be very interesting to see how college sports play out, and maybe college basketball is the first back. But we'll now be ending our show with some of our final takes from our panelists. Nate Breisinger, start us off.
In the 2018-2019 NHL season, the Tampa Bay Lightning tied the NHL record for the most wins in a season with 62, as they reached 128 points, clinching the President's Trophy. However, they would go on to be embarrassed by the Columbus Blue Jackets as they were swept in the Eastern Conference quarterfinals. For the Lightning, this season is much different. In the bubble, the Lightning clinched the second seed and dismantled both the Blue Jackets and the Boston Bruins in 5 games. Now, the Bulls will go on to beat the Islanders in 5 games. Then they will head to the Stanley Cup Finals and sweep either the Dallas Stars or the Vegas Golden Knights for their first championship since 2004. The bounce-back kids will exercise their demons in a showing of dominance in this season's NHL bubble.
Well, earlier today it was announced that Mr. Six-time Jimmy Johnson would be stepping into the cockpit of an Indy car following his retirement from NASCAR later this year. And I, for one, am glad that he's getting another chance. After winning his last championship in 2016, Johnson hasn't won a race since the 2017 AAA 400 at the Dover International Speedway. To put that in numbers, Johnson hasn't won a race in 121 starts. And I find that a shame. Johnson, one of the greatest NASCAR drivers of all time, should be able to retire on top. Athletes like Bill Russell, Joe DiMaggio, Raymond Bourque, and Jerome Bettis were all able to retire on top, and I think that Johnson should be able to do the same. So hopefully with Chip Ganassi Racing, Johnson will be able to get that chance and retire on top like he should.
Today's Clemente Day throughout Major League Baseball, celebrating the life of former Pittsburgh Pirates Hall of Famer and humanitarian Roberto Clemente. Clemente was a lifetime .317 hitter, 15-time All-Star, won 12 Gold Gloves, 4 batting titles, an MVP, and his number is retired by the Pirates. Clemente wasn't just a phenomenal player on the field, but an even better man off of it. Roberto died in a New Year's Eve plane accident in 1972. The plane went down off the coast of Puerto Rico, attempting to deliver relief supplies to earthquake victims in Nicaragua. Today, all Pirates players and some MLB players from Puerto Rico will don Clemente's iconic number 21 on their backs to honor the fallen star. Clemente is to Puerto Rican players what Jackie Robinson means for African American ball players. He helped lead the charge for Puerto Rican-born players to make their way into the major leagues, and he deserves national recognition for it. A movement has continued the past few years by Pirates players and faithful to retire the number 21 across Major League Baseball, honoring the man who gave so much to the game, but greatly to the ones that came after him. The Roberto Clemente Award is given to players who best represent the humanitarian and all-around good person that Clemente was. Considered the most honorary award in Major League Baseball, Clemente deserves all the credit in the world for the person that he was, and a final tip of the cap will be to thank him for everything by retiring number 21 across baseball. So guys, today's Clemente Day. What do you think of my final take? Do you think 21 should be retired throughout all of MLB?
I think it should. I think 21, Clemente has had a huge impact, like you said, not only on when he played, but currently Major League Baseball. A lot of Puerto Ricans playing right now.
I think it's very easy to agree with your take. 21 should be retired across baseball, just like Jackie Robinson's number, and players should don the number just like they do with Jackie Robinson. Everyone wears 21 for a given day.
Roberto is truly special, a great man in Pittsburgh. And you know what, guys? Retire 21. It's a movement. So, guys, for John Hanna, Nate Breisinger, I'm Austin Bechtold. Thanks for joining us on Sports Talk in the Burgh, and we will see you in 2 weeks.